Tongs days, am I right? The Mandalorian's best villain, Moff Gideon, may be on his way back, or maybe he never went anywhere to begin with. Directed by Lee Isaac Chung, Chapter 19, The Convert drops some Star Destroyer-sized breadcrumbs that the former wielder of the Darksaber is still very much involved in everything going on in the Mid-Rim, and that includes the fight for Mandalore and who should rightfully wield the Darksaber, and don't forget, he is just as obsessed with Grogu as everyone else. And really, can you blame him? Just look at that little guy. Whatever, Moff Gideon is coming back, and soon, and here's why we think so. But first, you know the deal, spoilers from here on out. If you haven't seen the episode, then you shouldn't be watching this. Why don't you instead just fly straight into an Imperial trap while we get into this?
There's too many of them. We've got to get out of here.
Seriously, how many of you shouted, "It's a trap" at your TV during that part?
It's a trap!
This guy knows what I'm talking about. Okay, so the Mandalorian is totally setting up the return of Moff Gideon, and there are several big clues in this episode that he's gearing up to give Din and Grogu the business once again. First and foremost, in this episode, it's revealed that Gideon escaped his war tribunal. It can be easy to miss that with everything else going on, like Imperial TIE Interceptors showing up out of the blue on Kalavallis to attack Din Djarin and Bo-Katan after their little swim in the living waters beneath Mandalore. Speaking of which, that massive Mythosaur we all saw down there, Bo-Katan was the only one who saw it, and now she's keeping that her own tiny little gigantic secret. But let's not bury the lead. We're talking about Moff Gideon. The whole Dr. Pershing subplot is part of Gideon's larger mission of making sure the Kaminoan cloning tech winds up in the hands of the Imperial Remnant, which we know eventually becomes the First Order, which facilitates the return of the Emperor himself. Of all the things happening in this episode, this is what's going on, zoomed out and in the background. I mean, we got Dr. Pershing back there doing God knows what on his computer. So the first clue, what are TIE Interceptors and TIE Bombers doing on Kalevala? Well, first thing to ask whenever you see any kind of TIE is, where did it come from?
It's a short-range fighter. If there are any bases around here, where did it come from?
Exactly, although that was a standard Imperial TIE fighter and Din and Bo-Katan mix it up with TIE Interceptors, most TIE fighters need either a base to deploy from or a command ship because they don't have hyperdrives. Some TIE platforms, including Interceptors, can be fitted with hyperdrives, but not this many of them, and not TIE bombers. Then again, all ships in Star Wars travel at the speed of plot, but even so, this encounter seems pretty suspect.
That's a lot of ships for an Imperial warlord.
Din and Bo-Katan jump to hyperspace before they can go searching for any capital ships in the system, but who might have both the means and the motivation to do this? And to destroy the seat of House Kryze in the process? Moff Gideon would. Not that he's the only guy out there who can command an Imperial cruiser, or even something bigger, but he certainly would have plenty of reason to hunt down the Mandalorian who stole all his stuff and then burn her house to the ground.
No.
Make no mistake, this is the work of Moff Gideon. I mean, unless they're bringing out Grand Admiral Thrawn, but our gut is saying Gideon, at least for now. Most of this episode was focused on Dr. Pershing's storyline. The whole thing kind of seemed like an episode of Andor, except it's flipped, and we have the former Imperial / probably still a secret Imperial, Elia Kane, doing secret Empire stuff while pretending to be a good little politically re-indoctrinated amnesty worker, number G68 or whatever. And boy, did she screw over Dr. Pershing in this one. Frankly, I still think he got off easy compared to the last time a Pedro Pascal character walked in on a medical professional conducting a dangerous procedure on a child without their consent.
I won't let you take her.
Unhook her.
Just putting that out there. The point is, even though she may be posing as an agent of the New Republic, everything Elia Kane does in this episode is in service to the same goal that Moff Gideon is serving.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Excuse me, Poe, but his return was clearly explained during a limited time in-game event in Fortnite. But the Mandalorian is thankfully giving us a little bit more explanation. We know that the Empire confiscated the Kaminoan cloning tech thanks to the Bad Batch. This whole time, Moff Gideon has been tasked with making sure that cloning tech didn't get destroyed along with the Empire. Dr. Pershing was obviously a key piece of this puzzle, what with him taking blood samples from Grogu so he could get at those sweet, sweet midichlorians within.
What are midichlorians?
Quiet, you. Anyway, Dr. Pershing's whole deal in this episode is that he's been politically rehabilitated after getting scooped up by the New Republic, and he's just trying to make good on his chance at a new life. but all of his research, which he began in earnest to try to do something good, like cloning spare organs for people who need them, that kind of thing, doesn't matter because it is all illegal under New Republic law. So Elia Kane manipulates him into sneaking aboard a decommissioned Star Destroyer to steal the bits and pieces he needs to continue his work in private. He succeeds, and then she screws him over by stealing all the pertinent stuff and then cranking up his mind flayer to 11, most likely mind-wiping Pershing completely like you would a malfunctioning droid. Anyway, again, he still got off easy for what he was doing to Grogu. I don't care where his orders are coming from, but that is beside the point. Elia Kane did all of this as part of the larger mission to preserve the secrets behind the cloning tech, so what will eventually become the First Order can one day bring back a motherfucker who could do a 960 corkscrew attack from a seated position. Hell yeah! There are other little breadcrumbs laid here and there that, slightly suggest that Moff Gideon might be coming back. Like, right when Pershing sits down with the other rehabbed Imperials, they're talking about how the rumor on the street is that Moff Gideon escaped on his way to the War Tribunal, suggesting that he's still out there in the galaxy somewhere. That one seems a little bit telling. Also, check out Amnesty Worker 68. She also served on Moff Gideon's ship along with Pershing. I'm sure that's just a lucky coincidence.
In my experience, there's no such thing as luck.
So yeah, those are the main reasons we think that Moff Gideon is coming back, and he's coming back soon. But if you need some more concrete evidence that suggests that he is waiting in the wings, metaphorically and possibly even literally, in a 2020 interview with People magazine, actor Giancarlo Esposito said, quote, "We're living in a universe that is huge and has so much to explore. So I think this show is going to start to lay the groundwork for the depth and breadth that's going to come in Season 3 and Season 4, where you're really going to start to get answers." Now bear in mind that interview was from before Season 2 premiered, so maybe Giancarlo was just trying to misdirect fan theories so we wouldn't see Gideon's capture coming. Stranger things have happened. Michael Shannon once said that General Zod would have flipper hands ahead of Batman v Superman's release, and we all ran with it, even though he was just f***ing with us. But that said, Moff Gideon striking back seems a whole lot more likely. Okay, short break. We'll be right back and I'll break down the other stuff that went down in this episode, including the Mythosaur-sized secret that Bo-Katan is sitting on. It's a Mythosaur. We'll get into what she's up to after this. Stick around. Okay, we're back, and I know we laid a lot on you real quick, so here's an even quicker recap. The episode opens on Bo-Katan and Din Djarin post-Living Waters near-death experience, and Mando is elated to be redeemed, whereas Bo-Katan is making damn sure only she saw the Mythosaur, and it seems like that's the case. They depart and they head to Kalevala, and that's where they get pursued by the TIE Interceptors. At first it's a few, and then a lot of them, and they're joined by TIE bombers, which bomb her palace to bits, giving her nowhere to sit around and do absolutely nothing all day. But before she and Din can figure out who did this, they jump to hyperspace to some place that Din says is safe. And that's when we cut to the Dr. Pershing stuff. He's living life as a politically rehabilitated, individually numbered New Republic citizen, and he's giving speeches at the Opera House that we know and love from Revenge of the Sith. And though he's rubbing elbows with Coruscant's upper crust, nobody even asks him if he's heard of the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise.
I thought not. It's not a story the Jedi would tell you.
Anyway, we follow him to Amnesty Housing. That's where he meets the other former Imperials who are also being rehabilitated into non-openly evil society, including somebody he knew on Moff Gideon's ship, Communications Officer Elia Kane. And this is where she jumps in to do her thing and fully screw over Pershing in the process, who again, he laid his hands on our beautiful Grogu, so he gets no sympathy from me. Nobody puts Baby Yoda on the operating table.
Nobody puts Baby in a corner.
So yeah, he gets captured and taken into custody, and real quick, we gotta call out this Mon Calamari technician's reaction to Pershing claiming it was all a trap.
It was a trap!
Also, it's worth pointing out that this mind flayer, not to be confused with the one from Stranger Things, was first mentioned in The Mandalorian Season 1 by Cara Dune before she got, mind flayed out of the show. At the time, Grief Karga claimed that mind flayers weren't real, they were just fear-mongering propaganda, but that's evidently false, and the so-called good guys in the New Republic aren't above using them despite their horribly inhumane reputation.
They'll upload me to a mind flayer.
Those aren't real. That was just wartime propaganda.
Mind flayer at low voltage might have been harmless for all we know, but unfortunately for Pershing, Kane cranks up the voltage to mind flay strength while suspiciously snacking on one of those little Imperial biscuits that she got to manipulate Pershing with in the first place.
Got to 50!
Kane has been tasked with helping the New Republic scout weak links in the Amnesty program, and that conveniently overlaps with her other gig as a double agent for the Empire. Part of the point of the subplot is to show that the Empire, the Rebel Alliance, the New Republic, the First Order, they're all kind of different shades of the same thing. Elia Kane is able to exploit the cracks in the system because, well, there are a lot of cracks. It's the same thing that Cassian Andor was able to do from the other side. It rhymes, like poetry. But it's all kind of just the same thing. Every day are people getting chewed up and spit out by the system, which kind of makes me think that the smartest guy in all of Star Wars is DJ.
Maybe.
DJ, Benicio del Toro's character from The Last Jedi. You remember The Last Jedi, right?
It's all a machine, partner. Live free. Don't join.
Anyway, after that surprising interlude, we go back to Din and Bo-Katan. Din not only proves his redemption to the Children of the Watch, but also Bo-Katan's, and they're both welcomed back into the top secret club for Mandalorians who never take off their helmets. And it's a good thing that Bo's facial expressions were absolutely hidden by her helmet, and Paz Vizsla's as well, for that matter. Okay, so real quick, there's actually some history here. This might be Bo-Katan's first induction to the Children of the Watch, but she was a full-blown member of the sect that came before it, the Death Watch, the Mandalorian terrorist cell from the moon of Concordia, who also attempted a bloody coup on Paz Vizsla's relative, Pre-Vizsla, the guy who only gave up control of the Darksaber after Darth Maul executed him. Anyway, Bo-Katan likes to badmouth the Children of the Watch, but she has her own bloody history with them and contributed just as much as anyone to the downfall of Mandalore. But I digress. This week's episode may have been a bit of a detour from most of the Mandalorian infighting, but it sure seems to be setting up a few big things to come later this season. And if we're keeping track, and we are, our credits are on Moff Gideon's return and Bo-Katan using this whole thing to her advantage. She all of a sudden has access to a bunch of Mandalorians again, and she knows where a Mythosaur lair is. That seems awfully convenient for her. What do you think? Is that a safe bet? And also, how did you feel about getting some Andor in your Mandalorian? And do you think that Bo-Katan will keep her helmet on from here on out so Katie Sackhoff can perform most of her lines from a VO booth like Pedro Pascal does? Bottom line, Giancarlo Esposito promised answers in Season 3, but so far, we have more questions than ever. What did this episode leave you wondering? Sound off in the comments below. Just, keep your helmets on. This is the way. As always, thank you for watching this episode of Canon Fodder. I'm Max Scoville, and for more Mando, check out our breakdown of why that big critter lurking in the living waters of Mandalore could be the key to the planet's next ruler. Kind of an important plot point. And also, make sure you're following and subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch. We'll be back next Tongs Day. Until then, may the Force be with you.